Welcome back to Viz Asia America. I'm Mike Walter with a look at your world news. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez was challenged by cancer and a fierce opponent, but in the end, he still managed to win a third term in office. Chavez captured 54% of the vote. A White House spokesman, while noting differences with Chavez, congratulated the Venezuelan people for the peaceful democratic election. CCTV's Michelle Begue has the latest from Caracas. Michelle?
The morning after the elections, opposition was very disappointed because obviously leading up to Sunday's vote, expectations had been very high for a victory.
6 more years. The headlines this morning were a harsh reality to wake up to for the 6 million Venezuelans that voted against the president-elect, Hugo Chavez Frias. The streets of Caracas were calm throughout the day, a stark contrast to the passionate Venezuelan scene leading up to the elections. The loss came as a shock to many supporters of the candidate, Enrique Capriles.
We all woke up very sad. The youth can't believe it. I wish there was a recount.
For the months leading up to the race, the opposition thought they had finally found their dream candidate after years of division and weakness. Based on last night's results, 54% for Chavez and almost 45% for Capriles. It is clear the opposition has grown, but in the end, it wasn't enough, and Capriles conceded the race.
I think this was a joke for the Venezuelans who had gone out to vote. We are tired of this divided country. All that Chavez does is to encourage hate.
But while part of the country can't imagine 6 more years of Chavez, there are others who couldn't be happier. The moment the National Electoral Council announced President Chavez had won, thousands of Chavistas began to fill the streets in front of the presidential palace. They cried, sang, and chanted as they waited for their president to claim victory. Not even thoughts of Chavez's battle with cancer earlier this year could bring them down.
Venezuela won, Chavez won, the love of Venezuela won, because no one in the world will ever be able to take him away from us. May God protect him and continue to give him health for the good of the humble and poor.
We have a president that loves us. He is a world leader. His mission cannot end. Love is paid with love. I knew our president couldn't lose. Chavez, I love you.
The images show a crowd overwhelmed with joy, but it underlies a much deeper reality for the nation. Venezuela is strongly divided, and it is hard to see its end and the start of reconciliation.
Officials have said this is a historic vote with a very high turnout, and this only emphasizes the point that a lot was at stake here for all Venezuelans, and they really felt they needed to go out there to vote. Back to you, Mike.
All right, Michelle Begue, live for us in Caracas. Thanks so much. Joining me now for more, John Perdue, Director, Latin American Programs, the Fund for American Studies. John, let's talk about this win, because it's interesting. The opposition picked up almost 2 million votes over the last election. Capriles really kind of hit a nerve on some of these issues. He talked about corruption. He talked about the violence, which has kind of plagued the country. Does Chavez have to try and deal with these issues since he's really kind of raised the status of them?
He made a nod to a couple of these issues during the campaign. It was a far less energetic campaign, I have to say, this time than normal because of his health. But he had acknowledged things. He even made a statement that I'm going to be a much better president from now on, so we'll see going ahead. He's made these promises before when he's won the election by a far greater margin, so we'll see.
Health, you brought up health. This is a man who just won a 6-year term, and yet this cancer that he's been dealing with, a lot of it seems to have been shrouded in secrecy the last year or so. He's gone to Cuba for treatments. What if, worst case scenario, something were to happen to him? What happens then?
Well, the Constitution in Venezuela says that if a president becomes incapacitated or dies while in office, they have to have an election within 30 days. So, to give you the most optimistic scenario that this whole situation could have produced is, if Capriles had won, there could have been violence in the streets. We heard a lot of these supporters of Chavez that ride around on motorcycles with pistols were going through the streets during the election. But if Chavez had lost, we've heard a lot of rumors that there were going to be violence. We've had Chavez's top military commander actually make the statement they would not give up power if Chavez had lost. So what this does is if Chavez does not form some heir apparent between now and the time that he may succumb to cancer or become even incapacitated, it could actually present a scenario where Capriles is the only heir apparent and he's from the opposition. And if Chavez, your typical autocrat, does not want to produce somebody that's, that poses any kind of mirror image of his own presidency. So I doubt he's going to produce someone that might be an heir apparent.
Let me talk to you about his legacy, because this is extraordinary that he won this, this third term. Sure. What do you see his legacy as? Well,
unfortunately, it may just be the same as all the others that have come before him that do this lurch towards socialism. It's squandered opportunity and lost decades. We've got so many lost decades in Latin America these days that we refer to, and if he goes much more, it's going to be a lost generation, because what he does is expropriate businesses and drives investment out of the country. So you've got a lot of people unemployed, you've got a housing crisis, things like that that are going to continue to escalate.
John Perdue, thanks so much for coming in and joining us. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.